What is going on, everyone? This is Nate the Great coming to you live from the All Sports All Plays Network. This is Monday Night Sports Corner. I'm here today with Ray Cruz. I'm also here with Greg Hot Seat Gallo. How are the both of you doing?
I'm doing great, Nate. How are you doing?
Doing
Doing well,
well.
Nate.
Um, today today's show is really just towards the draft. Um, number one, number two overall picks. Those were easy. Those were easy to decide. I know um, Jets went with the quarterback. Jaguars went with the quarterback. I know Bring It talked a lot about the draft and talked a lot about the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to skip over that one and talk a lot about the Jets. So, do you like that move? I know it was an obvious move for the Jets, but do you like that move? We'll go with Greg first.
You talking about the Jets going with Zach Wilson or?
Yeah, Zach Wilson.
Um, yeah, I like the move. I mean, they obviously made it clear that they were going to move on and go towards the quarterback. I kind of felt like they were going to go with Wilson. I thought the Fields would have been a pretty good option too. I do like the move. I think that for the first time in several years, the Jets fans have something to be kind of excited about. I think that they got this one more right as far as picking a future franchise quarterback. You know, Wilson has great. Uh, he has great passing ability. He sees the field really well. He hits open receivers. He's got a pretty strong arm. So he reads defenses pretty well, and he's pretty good at throwing outside of the pocket. So I think that's going to work well. They had an excellent draft, and I think this was a pretty smart move for them. This is probably the Jets' best draft that they've probably had in the last 20 years.
Oh, I disagree, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Ray, how do you feel about the Jets taking that number two overall pick?
Well, you got to understand Zach Wilson played at BYU. They're not in a big conference, they're not in a small conference either.
Thank you.
But you got to understand what Zach Wilson does. And if you hear the BYU coach talk about Zach Wilson, he puts in the work in every single day. He's always constantly trying to improve as stuff. To me, he's not a polished quarterback. He's not a polished at throwing and running. He's better at running than he's throwing the football. He needs to get a little bit more accuracy on his passing, a little bit more deeper. But I also like the way they went through the first four picks they had. They went offense, tried to protect him, give him some play weapons, and picking up that running back out of North Carolina, Michael Carter, will help him tremendously because he can catch and he can run the football in between and outside the tackles, and he got breakaway speed. And if you don't watch out, he can break a 5-yard gain into a 25 to a almost to a breakaway to a touchdown. That's how much speed he has. So you got to understand what they did, and then they went defense towards the end of the draft. So I think the Jets did have a good draft, but not a. If you look at sportingnews.com, they graded the Jets draft an A. I don't think it's an A. I think it's around probably about a C plus to a B maybe. But we don't know how all these players are going to turn out when it comes to the Jets and how all these rookies and what all the veteran players they got left over. And we don't know how the new coaching staff is going to do either. So, I mean, defense is going to probably be tough because they got a former 49ers defensive coordinator as the head coach. So, he's going to bring some of that 49er defense over philosophy to this team. And then we don't know how really he's going to manage the offensive side. So, we don't know how good if he's going to be a head coach in game management because, a head coach in the NFL is game management. You got to know both sides of the football. So the time is going to tell if New York really did any changes from last year to this year. But it's they got good pieces to start off with.
To be honest, the rest of their draft picks I really liked, but I don't know how I feel about. Well, okay. Since they traded away Sam Darnold, I like that they went quarterback in the draft because they needed a quarterback to play for the start of the season. Plus, they should have kept Sam Darnold.
If they were going to keep Sam Darnold, the only play that they really should have done is use that number 2 pick to trade down and maybe get a few more picks out of the deal. If they would have kept
Exactly.
Sam
That's
Darnold.
what I thought they should have done. Maybe get some more. How can you be a good quarterback if you don't have time to throw the ball or you don't have good weapons to throw it to?
You say, to me, the real big question here is, and if you notice how these quarterbacks go in New York, you know how tough the New York media is. So you got Zach Wilson. Is the New York media going to get in his head like they did Sam Darnold? I think that's why they only got rid of Sam Darnold, because I think the media was in his head and he just couldn't handle the New York media. You know how fringy the New York media is, and they can get in players' head. You got to be a tough player to play up in New York. It's just the physicality of their media's blasting and then the fans too. So Sam Darnold, we don't know how good he's going to be in Carolina, but he's going to have less pressure with the media and more time to refigure out his game. But then how Zach Wilson is going to come from Utah, Provo, Utah, all the way over here to New York and face the New York media. That's going to be the big test. Whoever goes to New York, they got to have a thick skin, and that's the big test up there, because if the media gets in your head, it affects your play on the field.
So I think keeping Sam Darnold was better there because at least Sam Darnold has experience with the New York media. Now, if you go over and draft a guy that's played not exactly West Coast, but close to the Rocky Mountain area, that's still nowhere near New York.
No,
he doesn't sit. Now, if you drafted a guy from in the New York area, then that would have been completely understandable. But there was no quarterbacks coming out of that area in New York. No solid quarterbacks from the draft. Closest one I think would be Ohio State with Justin Fields.
Maybe.
Anyway, yeah.
It's just, to me, with Justin Fields, I feel bad for the guy. The whole time leading up to the draft, he was in the top 5. Then he started falling out slowly. If they would have gave him a true evaluation, I don't think Justin Fields would be in this draft right here. I think Justin Fields, he knew he was going to be the 11th on down. He would probably go back to Ohio State so he can come out next year and probably be the number 1 guy. But, if you're going to be a top 5, you're going to make the money. But when you fall below that top 10, then your money goes down. So Justin Fields had that, the issue with his medical issues, and then somebody leaked out some false information. He couldn't read the defense. So that's why he fell. But to me, New York had Wilson on their board the whole single time. It was no ifs and buts, but it finally officialized. I guess they liked his pro day more than they liked Justin Fields' pro day.
Okay, so let's move on and talk about the next topic. The first surprise, personally, for me, I liked the move, but it was still a surprise because I thought they were going to go either Mac Jones or Justin Fields. But Atlanta Falcons, they went out and they selected Trey Lance.
You mean the 49ers?
49ers. Yeah, 49ers selected Trey Lance. Now, personally, I like that move because because if they went with Justin Fields or Mac Jones, they would have gone with a quarterback that would have been in there immediately. Now Justin Fields and Mac Jones, they're not top 10. They didn't get selected in the top 10. So I don't think with the teams that they are on, I don't think they are going to go in and play week 1. But if either one of those two guys were playing in San Francisco, then I think they would have. That's just personally me. It's why I like going with Trey Lance, because I think he needs some more experience under his belt, and I think he can do that with San Francisco.
Well, I think it was a pretty smart move because, they still held on to Jimmy G over there. And I know that they're not exactly high on Jimmy G, but they still feel like he has value. And they think that with that roster, that regardless of who they put in, whether it's Jimmy G or Trey Lance, maybe if he comes on strong, after 4 or 5 weeks of learning the system, they think that they can be successful and make a pretty good run. I mean, they have all the tools if they're healthy. They got a really good defense. They got some good offensive weapons. The team is built for success, and they just need a good, stable presence at the quarterback position. And I think that Trey Lance is kind of one of those interesting figures because he played at a smaller school, same school that Carson Wentz played for, and both were very high draft picks coming out of North Dakota State. Trey Lance has all the tools. He's very athletic. He's has a really good arm. He has the fire inside him to be very successful. He puts the work in, but if he's not ready, Jimmy G is still capable so he can kind of carry the clipboard and learn on the process. I don't think he's going to be quite under fire like Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence to be day one starters. I think that they're going to be content if he's going to have to sit out, a few games and maybe learn what's going on. And then if Jimmy G kind of falters a little bit and isn't playing how they want, then they can maybe insert him in there. But I like this move for the 49ers because Trey Lance is going to have a great opportunity to learn. And regardless of who they put in there from a rookie standpoint, Mac Jones, even if they would have, made that reach, he was going to be successful because this team has invested a lot of money into being successful on the defensive and offensive side of the ball. So it's a great situation for Trey Lance because he still has Jimmy G to learn from, and he can go into the quarterback's room and learn and not have to be the day one starter. And maybe, around the midway point, if Jimmy G's not carrying the load like they want, you can put Lance in. But I think it's a good thing because we've seen a lot of quarterbacks that get thrown into the fire way too early and then they just don't adapt well. And we've seen it, it seems like every year almost a rookie quarterback comes in and has so many expectations and stuff. And I think that's one thing, like we were talking about Sam Darnold. He came in and they thought that he was going to be a day one starter, and they moved up and made that move. And then the Jets were so unstable with their coaching staff and always having a coaching carousel and new offensive coordinators, every few months or every season. So it's hard to be successful. So I think that San Francisco has a pretty stable environment to nurture and develop a player like Trey Lance because he has all the potential in the world to be a success story in the NFL.
Now, Ray, I know you addressed your feelings on this one. You don't like this move. Am I correct on that?
That is correct because the reason I say that is we know he didn't play last year because of the COVID. I think he missed 2 years. I think he didn't play in the last 2 years at North Dakota State. He did miss last year. I know for a fact that it was because of COVID. He didn't want to play. So my question is, I think the third pick of the first round even though he's got all this talent and all this tool to be a potential good quarterback, I believe that's too high of a pick and too waste of you're gonna have a bench player. He's probably gonna make more money than some of your backup from last year holding a clipboard. So I mean, I understand there's athletics, I understand that, but what you're forgetting here in San Francisco, he can be sit on the bench type of guy. But what San Francisco did, what I like about San Francisco draft was they picked up Dre Sermon out of Ohio State. That adds to that running back core that they have, a productive running back. So Jimmy G is not going to probably be passing the ball as much as he did last year because they're going to have effective running back by committee stable there for Shanahan to call his run plays and stuff like that. So, I mean, you probably give Trey Lance some buy this full season unless Jimmy G does get hurt during the season, or if he's not doing to produce, then what you going to do? You're going to put him under fire. And like I said, he hasn't played active football in a year. So we don't know how good his skill set is going to translate to the NFL from a small Divisional II or FC football championship conference in the NCAA at North Dakota State. I understand Wentz came from there, and Wentz did pretty good until he got injured and it affected his playing. So is Trey Lance going to be the same way? He's kind of small in stature, but he's got a good arm. He's got good quickness and stuff. But you know about NFL, about running quarterbacks, they are presumed to get hurt as more than we have seen in the past.
I don't think
San
Francisco had to make that move all the way up to the 3 spot to get Trey Lance. I think that if they were really interested in Trey Lance, they could have either stayed put, and he might have fell in their lap at the 12. But I think that they could have made a move into like a 7 or 8, and not have to give near as much draft capital up, and still got Trey Lance. I don't think it's quite as of a reach as the Bears did a few years ago, going after Trubisky, which was a guy that was on absolutely nobody's radar, and then they moved up to the 2-hole to get a guy that was like projected in the late first round at best. But I think that Trey Lance was definitely a top 5 quarterback, but I think that the 49ers gave up way too much to go after a guy like Trey Lance. I think that he's going to be successful just because of how San Francisco is built. And I think that even Mac Jones could have been successful there for the short term. But I wouldn't say it was a reach. But yeah, I think that they could have made a trade with any of the teams in the 7 through 10 spot and still probably got Trey Lance, because I don't think that any of those teams were gonna take him, because there was offensive lines, tight ends, defensive tackles, linebackers that other teams wanted. So who knows? But they got who they wanted, so that's how it went.
Okay, so let's move into the next pick, which at first, so the next pick was the Atlanta Falcons. I thought they were going to go quarterback as well, but they ended up going with a tight end, blanking on his name for a second. Kyler Pitts.
Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts. I like that. I don't know how I feel about it, because I wish that they would have gone defense here, because Atlanta Falcons, ever since Matt Ryan joined the squad, the Falcons have always been really great offense, really bad defense. And they need help on their defense more than they need help on their offense. I wish they would have gone corner back, either Jesse Horn or Surtain or Caleb Farley, or maybe even they're the linebackers drafted by Dallas. But no, they went tight end. And even though tight end is a need, they need more help on that defense than anything. So I'm just gonna, if I had to give a grade, I'll probably give D, maybe a D, maybe a C, somewhere around there.
A grade for this pick?
A grade for this pick. Where your grade be?
I'd probably give this pick probably an A-, B+. When you're talking about Kyle Pitts, I don't think I've been talking about Matt Ryan a little bit on the show in the past, or at least on your morning show, Nate, and how I think that Matt Ryan still has something left in the tank, so I didn't think it was time to quite throw the towel in on Matt Ryan and go after a backup quarterback or his heir apparent, because he's still
I completely agree.
Level football. So I think to get him a weapon like Pitts was a great move. When you look at Kyle Pitts, it's kind of interesting because he has wide receiver skills, but he plays the tight end position. He's an excellent blocker. He's an excellent receiver. He can do it all, and he can play inside. He can play outside. He's kind of got that in between body. I mean, he could really. I mean, he's a deep ball threat. He's got wide receiver deep ball threat written all over him, but he can also play the middle game, get some great blocks, make those middle of the field receptions and everything, and open things up completely. I could see him being a game changer, just like a Gronk, just like a Kellen Winslow, just like a Tony Gonzalez. I could see him having that kind of impact and that kind of future Hall of Fame career. I know that's a lot to say about a rookie coming in, but I do see potential Hall of Fame potential from Kyle Pitts. I mean, he has all the tools, outstanding hands. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty and block and do what the team needs. Great team player. He's got great maturity. So I think that it was a good move, and it's going to help move the chains for Matt Ryan and the Falcons. I know that you wanted some defensive help, but I guarantee you're not going to complain next season with Patrick Surtain being in the
Okay, I'm not gonna
Denver
lie.
Orange.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. As a Denver Broncos fan, I'm glad.
So don't be complaining that the Falcons
True.
pick up your boy over there.
True. But also,
that
on it,
much...
as a Denver Broncos fan, I like that they didn't go Patrick Surtain. I like that the Falcons didn't go Patrick Surtain because we got him. But as an NFL standpoint, I rather would have gone Patrick Surtain or Jesse Horn.
Well, if you look at it, Kyle Pitts. I mean, I live in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm only an hour and a half away from Gainesville, and I've seen Kyle Pitts play in the Georgia versus Florida game here in the cocktail place here in Jacksonville in TIA Bank Field. Kyle Pitts is a change, like you said, he's a game changer. When he's absent out of Florida's offense, Florida offense stagnated big time this year. And when Kyle Pitts came back, the offense picked back up. He's a real dimensional. He could play in the slot. He could play the tight end position coming out of the tight end. But also, when you talk about defensive help and stuff like that, they did get some defensive guys for depth-wise in the corner. They got the San Diego State corner, Darryl Hall. They got the Stanford. They got the Notre Dame defensive end, Abaku Agunde. And then they picked up Boise State's cornerback Avery Williams. And then they added a wide receiver in Frank Darby, added a offensive tackle in Jalen Mayfield. Mayfield and Grant from TCU is a safety. They're going to play critical roles in the Arthur Smith coaching ramp, and they added a little bit of juice with Frank Darby on the wide receiver. So if you're looking at this, I understand you gave him a D. I understand he gave him an A-. I'll give it a B because the simple fact is they did get some depth on the defense, and they did pick up a guard who can play offensive tackle and guard at the inside. So they got a dimensional guard position and Jalen Mayfield out of Michigan. So if you look at it overall, even though they should have gone top brand, I think they did the right thing. They got the best value out of that pick, and which was the tight end Kyle Pitts, and they actually filled in because everybody thought Kyle Pitts was going to go to San Francisco.
So I changed my name real quick to Statmaster Nate, and I'll change it back. But I changed my name real quick to Statmaster Nate because I wanted to show you guys something. I'm reading it right now that the Atlanta Falcons last year were they were ranked last passing defense with a 248.9 yards per game. However, so I think me personally, I get that they addressed it. They addressed help with corners and all this kind of stuff in later rounds, but I feel like if personally for me, if I had to address during my first round, I would address my biggest need more than the sexy pick. I would just say that. I would just dress the biggest need and the best available. I would just do that.
Well, if you look at it last year, the Falcons played more man-to-man press coverage. That's why you're getting beaten off. This year, they're going to probably go back to more of a zone coverage. So you really didn't need to go out and get Jason Horn or Satan right where they needed it to. All they needed to do is go get some more corners where they can play that zone defense and mix it up from man-to-man and zone. And that's the problem. When you got a team that plays strictly man-to-man on the corners, your corners are on an island all game long. So, I mean, that's the reason that why they were last in the past. But if you mix it up and change your defense around a little bit and put these corners in different spots, then it might be a different team on the defense. So, like I said, but we don't know how good all these players that got drafted are going to be. They probably found a sleeper in one of these corners like Avery out of Boise State. He could actually be a sleeper. We don't know that. We don't know how these players are going to react, and when they get into camp and go through the stuff, and we don't know how the veterans that they got still there are going to feud in the new scheme.
So let's move on. Let's move on to the next pick, which was the Cincinnati Bengals. It's for me, it's the same thing. I get that they addressed wide receiver. I get that they addressed wide receiver in the first round, and they did. I get that. However, I still feel the same way about with the Cincinnati Bengals as I do with the Atlanta Falcons. Address the biggest need. I think they should have gone Penny Sewell here over their wide receiver. But that's personally just me. Ray, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I can understand that too because you want to protect your and big investment. He got hurt. He got torn ACL, last year. And everybody's gonna think. But I'm gonna tell you what. Don't keep your eye on this offensive tackle out of East Carolina, DeAndre Smith. He is a pretty good left tackle. He'd be a pretty good tackle. He's going to cover the part of his blind side. So I mean, he's a big guy. He can play. He's coming from a small school, but he was a big time asset coming out of high school and stuff like that. So they picked up an offensive tackle in the later rounds. But I understand what they picked a wide receiver. They want somebody that Burrow is familiar with, and Jamar Chase is that familiarity with Burrow. So now you got Burrow and Chase in the same offense. So now you got his got a play person that he knows real good, and they got the players around him from last year. So, but the only thing that really you look at it here is they did get a lot of defensive end, and they picked up Joseph Asai out of Texas, who is actually a pretty good defensive end. So they got some good on the defensive side, and the mixture of their defense and offensive picks, and then they got a special team kicker in Evan McPherson out of Florida. So I mean, they did a mixture of it, but to me, I give them a B plus on the draft. I think they should have gone after a little bit more of an offensive tackle position, but they did pick up one offensive tackle out of East Carolina who was actually pretty good in a later round. So,
Greg, what are your thoughts on this draft? The Bengals.
Well, I like the pick by the Bengals. I had a feeling Ray and I were talking about this not too long ago when we were making our predictions. I made the prediction that they were probably going to go after Jamar Chase just because of the chemistry and the familiarity that Joe Burrow and Chase had in their success with LSU. I mean, they lit it on fire, during their undefeated season, and I mean, they put up some great highlights in college, and I expect them to do the same thing with the Bengals next season. It was unfortunate that Burrow, tore his ACL last year, got hurt on a tackle, and they definitely needed to address the offensive line. I think that they did that pretty good with, their second round pick, that Carmen kid, and then like the guy that Ray was talking about, the offensive tackle that they picked up in about the fourth round. He's a big guy, and you don't want to underestimate a guy just because he's a third or fourth rounder. These guys are still in the top 200 players in all of college football. So even if they're in the fourth round, they can still be developed into something good. I mean, you're still in the top of the top to get drafted. Even if you're Mr. Irrelevant, you're still in the top 250 players, considered by the NFL for the draft. So I think that they did a pretty good job overall in the draft. I think that it's going to be interesting to see Burrow and Chase lined up again, like the old days a few seasons ago. And I'm excited to see what the Bengals can do on offense. They're going to have to rely on they might have to make another off-season move maybe to pick up another big piece in free agency or something if they don't feel comfortable with their 2 draft picks that they got for the line. So, but I think overall I give the Bengals probably like a B to B plus average for the draft. I think that they got some great defensive help, and they've got a great wide receiver, probably the best in the business in this class. So yeah, I think that they made a pretty smart move. I know a lot of people were talking about Sewell, but even if you weren't going to go after Sewell, Slater or Darisaw would have been a pretty good pickup too if they didn't want to go after Burrow. Chase. Sewell. So.
Yeah, and I forgot it. There's Georgia's center that they picked up, Trey Hill. Don't count him out either because he's one nasty center.
So let's move on. Let's move on to the next pick, and that's actually Miami Dolphins. They went wide receiver for their first round. And I actually like that because they do need, outside of Devontae Parker, they do need weapons out there for Tua Tagovailoa. So honestly, for the Miami Dolphins, I would give them probably an A for the draft that they did. So, but Greg, we'll go with you on this one.
Well, I think that overall, I think that the Dolphins had probably one of the best drafts out of all the teams in the NFL. I'd say that out of all the teams, they were in the top 3 as far as the draft. Jalen Waddle, he's an exciting player, excellent route runner, excellent route running skills, and great hands. Played in a great system with Alabama and was successful with a couple different quarterbacks in there with Tua. So he's rejoining Tua, and he also had success with Mac Jones. Won a national championship last season. They went undefeated. So mass amounts of talent that he played with. So coming to the Dolphins and matching up with Tua, I think that it was a great pick and a great draft overall for the Dolphins. I mean, they got a couple really awesome picks in the first round, and it just kept going. And so I give their draft at least a very solid A. I think that they addressed a lot of needs, and I'll tell you what, Houston, they can thank Houston for the success that they're going to have for the years to come. So,
yeah,
there comes a lot of success from another team's mismanagement, and I think that the Dolphins are going to reap all the benefits from Houston. Really, I don't know what they were thinking, but yeah, Miami is loaded up, and so Houston's finally paid off all that draft debt.
Well, Houston, you've been having a problem.
Yeah, I look at this draft here, and I'm gonna particularly pick out one other person here that Boston College tight end Hunter Long. Hunter Long, man, this dude can block, pass, he can do it all for a tight end. And you talking about a pressure hot read, he's going to be the one going up in the seam right there. So he's going to give him a nice outlet right there on that tight end pick. So they got Waddle at wide receiver from Alabama. They picked up some good edge rush in Jalen Phillips out of Miami. Notre Dame offensive tackle Lenham Ichberg is great. UMass, he's a little bit underrated offensive tackle, but I think he's a pretty good offensive tackle. It's Linnell Coleman, and then they picked up the Cincinnati running back Jared Dokes, and Dokes is he's a beast. He's a runner. So they have added some good depth in the running back, and then they added a good wide receiver, and they added a good tight end, and then some good offensive line and defensive edge rusher. So Miami did a great job. I mean, I give them an A, and I give them one of the top 3 out of the draft. So
yeah, their secondary is going to be pretty tight next year with Javon Holland coming out from University of Oregon.
yep.
Outstanding defender. So I mean, it's going to be good on both sides of the ball for the Dolphins for years to come.
So next up, you have a team that I'm surprised they did not screw up their draft pick. The Detroit Lions drafted Penny Sewell as their number 7th overall pick. I seriously thought they were going to trade down, and New England was going to take Justin Fields right here. That was my prediction. However, that didn't work. There was no trades until what happened with Dallas. I like what Detroit did. I mean, they need help everywhere. Why don't you just start off with some offensive line? I like that. But we'll go with Ray on this.
Well, Detroit did pretty good on their draft in the first round and stuff like that. If you looked at the Detroit wardroom when they went to them every time they got the pick, they were in there chest bumping, high fiving everybody. So, I mean, I think Detroit did, okay for their draft. What they needed to help Jeff Goff or
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. So I mean, I like the pick where they did right where they were at, and the way they went through their draft picks and stuff like that. So, I mean, to me, they got a good tackle, athletic person to help out in their offensive line. That was a big emphasis for Detroit coming in, and then they just went for depth the rest of the way. So,
Greg?
Yeah, offensive line and wide receiver were huge needs for Detroit. I thought that they might have went out and tried to get a Devon Smith or someone, with this pick because they just got rid of Galladay to the Giants. So I thought that they might want to go out and get a wide receiver, first round wide receiver to help Goff out, in the passing game. But yeah, they definitely need help on the offensive line too. So I think that they made the smart decision to get Sewell. He's one of the highest rated tackles, out there, and he's an excellent blocker. So he's going to provide a lot of protection for Goff. They didn't go out later on in the second and third round and go find a wide receiver like I thought. They went more with defense, but I think that overall the Lions had a pretty solid draft. I'd probably give them like a B, solid B for the draft because they filled a lot of needs. They did need some defensive help and everything, and I think that'll come. They did a lot better than they did in years to come when they were drafting a wide receiver every single year or getting a quarterback that just wasn't quite penning out or maybe picking a quarterback too high. So I think that it was a good pick and it was a safe pick because, Sewell's going to be around and he's going to give them a really good offensive line for years to come. So, I think that they're making it clear that they're going to try to protect Goff and get him some weapons down the road. So I think that it was a pretty good draft and a pretty good start for the new coaching staff in Detroit. So I think they're moving in the right direction.
I still think they're going to blow up this season. I mean, Detroit's Detroit. You're talking about a team that has won one playoff game since the 1950s. I know that they had an okay draft, but I mean, just because they had an okay draft doesn't mean that they'll have an okay season.
It's going to take Detroit probably about 2 or 3 years before they even think about having us a good season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that they're getting some good building blocks, I don't think by any means by unloading Stafford and bringing Goff in a new coach and everything that they're expecting to just light the world on fire next season. But I think that if they can keep this up and they got a good coach that's very enthusiastic and, he's kind of a raw, and I think that he's going to bring a lot of excitement to the locker room. And I think that players are going to buy into that. So even if they're not getting a whole lot of wins, I think that it's going to bring a brand new attitude, maybe a little bit more excitement to Detroit. They need that right now because their baseball team is absolutely terrible.
Detroit anything is absolutely terrible. They haven't been. I mean, when was the last time anything from Detroit made it to the playoffs?
They did close at
2016.
04.
Part of the hockey team, maybe.
Oh yeah, their hockey team. No, Detroit Red Wings. Detroit Red Wings. So no. So actually, the last one was the 2016 with the Lions. They made it, but they didn't make it to the divisional round. Yeah. They lost to the Seattle Seahawks that year.
Wow. All right, Nuggets up by 4.
But they've got new management. They've got new management, a new coach, everything going on. I mean, we've seen it in years past. Future Hall of Famers just wanting to end their careers with a little bit left in the tank because they just hate the direction that the team's going with Barry Sanders, Charles Johnson, so maybe things are looking up over there finally.
Yeah. All right, let me break in here real quick. Nuggets 52, Lakers 48. But in the third quarter, Nuggets scored 10. Lakers only scored 3, and they already played almost 4 minutes in the third quarter.
Yes. All right, I know. Game's not over, but okay. Getting back to topic. So the next pick I did not really like. I thought they should have gone Devon Smith here. Maybe go wide receiver here. Maybe just go some offensive line. They went corner. They went Jesse Horn. I did not expect them to go. I honestly think they're one of my bottom 3 teams in this draft. For me personally, I think they did screw up this draft. But Craig, why don't you take this over?
Well, I really like J.C. Horn. I mean, he's an excellent defender from the University of South Carolina. Outstanding defender. That was one of their needs that they needed was a cornerback. But with everything going on, with them picking up Sam Darnold and they're moving Teddy Bridgewater and this whole carousel thing that they got going on, and the fact that they spent 7 draft picks last draft on all defense, which, in defense, they got some great return from Derek Brown and a few other players out of the deal on defense. But I absolutely love J.C. Horn as a player. But yeah, I don't know what they're going to have as far as weapons for Darnold to work with. I know that McCaffrey's, still around, but he was battling some injuries last year. I know that they picked up Terrace Marshall from LSU, which should help out in the second round. But as far as the first round draft pick, I mean, I don't think you can go too wrong with J.C. Horn. I know that it wasn't probably their highest need, but yeah, he's an outstanding defender. But I don't know if it was the most glaring need because they've already invested in cornerbacks and defensive tackles and all that stuff last season. So I thought that they would have been a little bit more offensive minded. But as far as how talented J.C. Horn is overall, I'm not going to give this a bad grade. I think that it was probably a B grade. It wasn't what they absolutely needed, but he's going to be an excellent field general for him in the future. So I absolutely love J.C. Horn. He was one of my favorite players in the draft and an exciting guy to watch in college. So.
All right. So next up is my Denver Broncos. We go after a cornerback as well. And personally, I think it's not the most glaring need for us. We need to go offensive line. And I think honestly I would have liked it better if we went Rashawn Slater. Because Peninsula was off the board. So going Rashawn Slater, I think that's what I would have done. We go cornerback, not the biggest need here. But I'll give this a B. All right.
Okay. Well, yeah, I like the Denver's pick in quarterback Patrick Surtain. It helps you solidify your corners and stuff like that. But they also picked up a nice running back in Javon Williams out of North Carolina. He's the one that he's the hammer. He was the hammer. He can hammer you down. He can speed. He can outrun you, and he can. Now he added pass catching last year, so he's now really a good threat for that because he can play all three downs for the Broncos. But then he also then you got the Texas safety in Caden Stearns. He's an excellent, pretty good safety for Texas last year. He makes those big monster hits. And then you got the Ohio State linebacker and Barton Browning. So you're picking up a lot of people on defense. But I also like that Auburn wide receiver, Seth Williams. He's a beast. He's the one that can catch the ball. He can run you over. He's like a possession type deal, but he can also be a breakaway kind of guy too. He's got an acceptable speed. Quarters in this league is not going to realize he's that fast. They're going to think he's slow, but in a turnaround, he's a susceptible, fast kind of guy. He can break tackles. He can, turn a 5-yard gain into a 25 to 35 yards, breaking tackles. I like the cornerback in Kerry Vincent Jr. out of LSU. So, I mean, they did pretty good at getting their defensive bag and picking up a few offensive key pieces. The Wisconsin Whitewater guard, out of Wisconsin Whitewater, he's actually a susceptible depth kind of guy in your offensive line. So I mean, if you overall look at it, I give this a B+ for the Denver Broncos.
Right.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at it overall, I'm with Ray. I'm going to give it a B+, maybe an A-. I mean, picking up Williams was a huge get in the second round. He was an absolute stud for North Carolina. Him and Carter just tore it up last season in the ACC. So excellent running back tandem there. But, with the loss of Philip Lindsay, with him moving on and everything, that was a great pickup. I really like Patrick Surtain as a player, and I think that he's an excellent person off the field. I think that he's going to have a lot of success there, but I'm with you on this, Statmaster Nate. Cornerback wasn't the position that they needed. I think their most glaring need that they had was either on the offensive line or at the quarterback position. So I think that picking up a Justin Fields or a Rashawn Slater or Christian Darrisaw would have been another excellent move that they could have done. I don't think that Patrick Surtain was a bad fit, but I just don't think that it was necessarily what they needed because their secondary really isn't the issue and their defense overall isn't the issue. I think that they could have also done well if they would have picked up Micah Parsons, before the Cowboys made their move to get him because, I mean, combine him with Von Miller out there, that would have been an outstanding tandem out there on defense. So Micah Parsons or a Rashawn Slater or a Justin Fields, I think would have better served them because I think that they're pretty solid overall, even before Patrick Surtain got his name called.
Personally, I don't like it when our team drafts quarterbacks because we haven't been successful drafting quarterbacks in the past. I mean, one quarterback that we kind of drafted. It's a long story. Yeah, that we got into in a previous episode. The one quarterback that we kind of drafted was that took us to Super Bowl and won it was John Elway.
Yeah, I think as far as quick joke about the Broncos, I think that their most successful way to get a quarterback is to get a quarterback that is 2 years away from being washed up and see if they can get a ring out of them. So, yeah. So,
Because
with that being said, Aces Aaron Rodgers may be heading your way. I don't know.
that's true. That's true. Aaron Rodgers could be. We're the front runners to get. Hey, we're a team that's front runners to get Aaron Rodgers, but we're also a team that's front runners to get Watson. Hey, why don't we get both? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, we're about the legal issue with Watson.
That's a legal issue for Watson.
Yeah,
that's true.
We got to wait for all the legal issue to get up with him.
That's true. We have one more draft that we have to one more draft pick that we have to cover for tonight, and we'll close this off. Dallas Cowboys, they decided to trade down to 12, and then Eagles. With the Eagles moved up. Dallas ends up getting more picks out of this. Eagles went for a wide receiver. Dallas went for a defensive lineman. Personally, out of both teams, I like this move both ways. Because for Dallas, you go for a defensive lineman. They need help on that defense. Any defense is probably better than what they got last year. Just saying. For the Eagles, they got a wide receiver. I'm said the stat so many times. I said the stat so many times, and I'm going to say it again. Carson Wentz has thrown for over 4,000 passing yards last year, and he has not had a receiver that has caught for over 300. Not one receiver has caught for over 300, and Carson Wentz still threw for over 4,000. And Carson Wentz was benched throughout part of the season. My point is, me personally, I think Carson Wentz is underrated. That's A. And B, injuries has been a big problem last year. Ironically, I get it. Now I get why, because of what's happened previously in previous years. But the one person who did not get hurt last year was Carson Wentz, a quarterback position, all the quarterbacks. I like this move because wide receivers are hurt for Philly, and I like this move for Dallas. We'll go with Greg. Do you like this move, this trade for Dallas? And do you like what Philly drafted?
Well, I like what Philly drafted. I mean, they got Devon Smith. He was one of the first, non-quarterbacks to win the Heisman Trophy in quite some time. So, he's an excellent route runner, had tremendous success, especially last season with Alabama. So, I mean, he's an excellent player. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is the guy to be throwing the ball to him or not, but that's who they got right now. And I think that it was good to get him a little extra help with the wide receiving core. And I'm with you with Carson Wentz being underrated. I mean, before he got hurt, before the Eagles made that run with Nick Foles and made it to the Super Bowl and came up with the upset over the Patriots, Carson Wentz was having a tremendous season. He was on an MVP caliber season, and then he made a risky move, went head first into the end zone, towards ACL. It was a very unfortunate incident, and so I think that Carson Wentz is going to be very successful with Frank Reich in Indianapolis. I think that it was an excellent move especially for the Cowboys, because they traded down, they got more picks, and then they ended up getting Micah Parsons, who was probably one of the top-rated defenders in all of college football. I know he sat out last season, with Penn State and everything, but the guy puts in the work. He's got tremendous field skills. He's kind of like right there with Luke Kuechly with ball instincts and everything. So, it's going to be a bright spot for the Cowboys to really have a great defender in the middle of their defense that can read defenses, make good tackles, an aggressive player, on the defensive side of the ball. So I like the move that the Cowboys made. The only thing I don't like about it is I wanted Micah Parsons to go to somewhere else besides the Cowboys. But, that's what, because I really like Micah Parsons, but I'm not a big fan of the Cowboys. But that's where he is. But, yeah, with Sean Lee retiring and how he had an injury-plagued career and everything, that's going to be a big replacement assignment for him, but I think he's up to it. So I think that it was a good trade overall because the Eagles wanted a wide receiver, and the Dallas Cowboys definitely needed to address defense this draft, and I think that they came out and had one of their better drafts that they've had over the past several years. So I think it was a pretty good move, but I think that the advantage went to the Cowboys because they got a few extra picks. And they got the guy that they initially wanted anyways.
Right.
Well, for that pick, the Cowboys need to give a high five to the Carolina Panthers for not picking up Micah Parsons at that 8th spot, because, Carolina's defense is predicated around the middle linebacker, and they lost out on with a Luke Kuechly wannabe, and Micah Parsons. So the Cowboys got it pretty good. Like you say, you got the extra draft picks, and you still got your guy you wanted, but you're going to pay him 2 picks less than what you would have at the 10 pick. So they made out on financial way, and they made out with extra picks. But, Philadelphia got what they wanted, and Alabama wide receiver Devon Smith. Devon Smith going to remind me of Steven Smith, the wide receiver, the same stature and stuff. He can do the same things that Steven Smith does. If he has that kind of a year like Steven Smith, a breakout career, you're going to see the Eagles be. But then again, is Jalen Hurts going to be the right quarterback to throw these passes to him? They do have a little bit of familiarity because it came out of the University of Alabama. But then again, Jalen Hurts at Alabama wasn't a passer until he got to Oklahoma, where under Lincoln Riley made him into a better passer than he was at Alabama. So is his progression still going to continue on? Or is he going to degress as a quarterback? So that's going to be a lot of questions for Philadelphia to answer. But I think the next part of the next draft, Philadelphia is going to get better and they're going to get back to where they need to be. And the Cowboys got what they needed and got us a few extra picks. So I think the Cowboys came out better on this end of the draft deal. But it's surprising that 2 divisional teams are trading with each other. That's surprising. When they announced that surprised me.
That did surprise me. Real quick. So John Suggs has a question. Mm-hmm. He says, does Rodgers retire, or does he do a Favre move and go to the Vikings? To answer that, he probably won't go to the Vikings. That's personally my personal opinion. He might do a Favre move and go somewhere else, but he won't go to the Vikings. If he does that, I think he's the 3 choices between the Raiders, 49ers, and Broncos. It'd probably be Denver. That's just personally me.
He'll do a Peyton Manning.
Yeah, he'll do a Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
That biasness aside, I seriously think if he goes to the 49ers, Raiders, or Broncos, because that's the place he wants to go, it'd probably be Denver. And then I don't think he will retire, only because I don't think he's going to win Jeopardy. I think he's not going to be the host. Ray?
Well, if you look at it this way, Aaron Rodgers, he could retire. I mean, he's gotten his family's fighting over his money anyway, So he can just go and retire, and family will stop fighting, maybe get back together and be a family again. But then again, he might do it like a Peyton Manning, or like the Green Bay Packers might send him to Denver, for whatever Denver can give back to him, and probably have a better capita in the trade too. But I don't see him going to the 49ers because of Trey Lance. They got him. I don't see him going to Arizona because they got Kyler Murray already established there. I don't see him going to any other team but to the Broncos, because the Broncos are the only ones going to probably need quarterback help at the time.
Yeah. So I read some of the offers that Packers offered us for Aaron Rodgers. They said that they wanted 4 different draft picks. Can't remember what they were exactly, but 4 different draft picks plus one of these 4 players: Drew Lock, Von Miller, Courtland Sutton, or Glasnow.
Now, let me ask you a question. So if they see a report where Andrew Luck's going to be in that involved, then why did he pick Jordan Love last year?
I don't know.
Because Jordan Love is the pick that they didn't even tell Aaron Rodgers that they were going to pick. Even Andy Dalton got notified by Chicago that they were going to pick Fields. Brady got contacted. They were going to pick Trask. Cam Newton even got told that they were picking Mac Jones. So, I think all this Aaron Rodgers stuff we've got coming along is because of that one pick of last year that they didn't tell him they were going to go get Jordan Love. I guess Jordan Love supposed to be the heir apparent of Aaron Rodgers. So,
I think if I remember correctly.
And then Rodgers is all this over because he couldn't get a new contract. So they just should wash their hands and let Aaron Rodgers go.
Greg, before I let you give the answer to this, I think if I remember correctly, what they offered was a first-round pick in 2022, a first-round pick in 2023, a third-round pick in 2023, and fourth-round pick in 2023 is what they offered Denver.
Okay.
And what they said they will take if the trade goes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit too high of an asking price for a quarterback that's probably got 3 or 4, decent years ahead. I think that's way too much. I know that Aaron Rodgers is a future Hall of Famer and he's an excellent quarterback, but you're talking about a guy coming into his age 38 season soon, and he's probably only got maybe a few years left. Maybe 3 years left in the tank as far as playing exceptional football. So yeah, giving up that many first rounders and all that stuff, because we've seen other quarterbacks that were starters for other teams. I know that Carson Wentz and Aaron Rodgers are 2 completely different skill sets and levels of play overall. But yeah, the Colts didn't have to give near that much to get Carson Wentz to come over. They just gave up like a first and a conditional and maybe a third or something. So that's a little bit too steep of an asking price. But I don't know. I wouldn't give up Courtland Sutton. He's a promising player. I wouldn't give up Von Miller by any means. He's an outstanding guy, and he wants to end his career in Denver. So I wouldn't give up any big pieces to your to a Super Bowl caliber team, because Denver's building something good. I know that they really lack. That's their one huge lack, is a really good, consistent quarterback. They got the defense and everything, and I'd love to see maybe Aaron Rodgers get a change of scenery and maybe go to a Broncos or somewhere else. But like Ray was talking about, it was pretty disrespectful that they didn't really let him know that they were selecting Love last season in the draft. But I think it sets a bad precedent when a player comes in and says, "I only want to stay if you fire the general manager," or "I only want to stay if you do this and this and this, because then that's a player trying to control the team, and that's not how it's supposed to work. You're not supposed to have a player, regardless of whether it's Michael Jordan, Aaron Rodgers, who it is, start telling people you need to draft this person, you need to fire this person, because that's not the player's job. The player's job is to go out and perform. It's not to be making all the hiring and firing decisions. So I don't know. It's kind of, I hate to see this going on, especially around draft time and everything with all this drama. But yeah, if I was Denver, I wouldn't pay that ransom to get Rodgers. That's a little too steep. I think there's a little bit more negotiating that they can do to get a little bit better deal on it. But if Rodgers wants out, they might have to take a little bit less, because I certainly wouldn't give up that much draft capital for a quarterback that's going to turn 38 in a few months.
All right. So, any final thoughts before we get this close? We'll go with Ray first.
Well, my final thought is that NFL draft was good for everybody. It was more deeper than anybody expected this year. But as the going closed, I hate to tell you, but the Lakers are up 70-65 with end of the third quarter. So I hate to pass that along, but it's been a good game ever since. So back and forth. So good. You might win, you might lose. Who knows?
Yeah. Greg?
Well, we kind of touched on it with Aaron Rodgers and everything, and this is kind of a sad time in sports when you see players not just like Aaron Rodgers, but you see like a LeBron James or some other player that comes in and they start kind of bad mouthing the team, or we need to do this, or we need a new general manager and stuff like that. I just wish that in all of sports, the players would go play. I know that people are going to be discontent and everything, but that's the one thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way about professional sports, is when they get paid this huge amount of money, but then they air out all their problems for the whole world to see. Because regardless of whether it's professional sports or what, I don't think it's for the whole world to see, the inner workings and all the drama and everything going on. I wish that this whole Aaron Rodgers thing would be behind closed doors and they'd be working out deals or whatever going on. I think it sets a bad tone for professional sports as a whole. But I just hope that down the road that players and owners and management and everybody can figure out kind of a middle ground as a way to work things out without trying to get the entire country or anybody involved in the political or business side of sports all worked up about it, because it's really not at the end of the day worth us or anybody else getting worked up about contracts and all that stuff. We just want to see great play on the field and on the court. That's my personal opinion.
All right. So for me, it was a good draft. There's a lot of teams that I think did really, really did well. But there were a couple teams out there like the Carolina Panthers that I don't know what they were doing. Texans being another one. Well, this has been Nate the Great, Ray Cruz, and Greg Hot Seat Galliano signing out for now. As soon